Hi, it's been quite a long time since I've been on, so I thought it was about time I came back and maybe spoke a little bit more about snakes. The idea of these things is that people can come in and ask questions, anything to do with snakes or other exotic pets. People are just curious about them, want to know a bit more about them, people who maybe are thinking about getting a snake as a pet, or maybe people who've already got one and they're having problems with it. I should be able to answer most questions. I've been keeping snakes for a long time. So today I thought I would maybe talk a little bit about shedding. As most people know, snakes shed their skin. The reason they do this is as they grow, they shed their skin. When they're like young, they shed their skin maybe every 2 or 3 weeks because they grow pretty fast. But basically, it's because the old skin gets shed and there's a new skin underneath. When they shed their skin, the skin is like immediately after the shed, it's really soft and sort of stretchy. But once it's been in the air for a bit of time, it dries out and it becomes like paper. It rips really easily. And what I've done is I've kept, this is a corn snake that I've got in here, and he's what, 2 years old. And I've got a shed skin from when I first got him. When I got him, he was 10 weeks old, and this is the shed skin from when he was 10 weeks. So you can see how thin he is, or was. Like I said, this skin is really delicate. When snakes shed their skin, there's a couple of things that you really want to watch for. Ideally, you're hoping that the skin comes off in one piece, but the main part to watch for is the tip of the tail, especially when they're very small. You can see that shed goes right to the tip. It's really common in young snakes that it doesn't, and it breaks off before the tip of the tail. And what happens is the snake grows a little bit once it's shed, and the skin starts to act as a tourniquet basically, and if it keeps happening, you end up with a solid lump of hard skin at the tip of the tail, and the tip of the tail will die and drop off basically, and there's always a chance that you can get infection. So it's really important to look when they shed their skin, check that it has shed right to the very tip. Like that's his old shed skin from when he was 10 weeks old. The other thing is snakes have also got a scale over their eyes. Don't know if the camera will focus on that, but I think you can see the 2 circles there. It's like big contact lenses. So the whole snake sheds its whole skin, including what they call the brill, the scales over the eyes. And they're there to protect its eyes because snakes don't have eyelids and they can't blink, so it protects their eyes. But it's really important to check that you get this when it sheds its skin, because again it can cause problems if the eye scales don't come off. The same thing can happen again and again, and you end up with a really thick layer of dried skin over the eyes. It can cause infections, but also affects the snake's eyesight. The snakes, like I said, when they're young, they shed their skin maybe every 2 or 3 weeks because they're growing so quickly. But as they get older, the time between sheds gets less. So to do as a sort of comparison, this skin was when he was 10 weeks, and this skin was about a week ago. So as you can see, the skin doesn't have any colour, it's just clear. You can probably hear it rustling, it's dried out. You can see the scales, hopefully. And then the belly scales. It's like caterpillar tracks. So that's basically the shed skins. I'll lift the box so you can see him. So he's a corn snake, and there are a lot of different types of corn snake now. The last I looked, I think there was somewhere in the region of 620 different types. This is because of selective breeding. People watch for things in their snakes and maybe they see a bit more yellow than in the rest, so they keep it, and then they sort of breed them to try and enhance these things. So you get a lot of different colours and patterns now, and you get patternless corn snakes as well. The sort of normal colour is yellow, red, black, white, a sort of combination. This snake here is what they call an ultramelanistic corn snake. Corn snakes have normally got their eyes are black, but his eyes, they probably look black in the camera, but they're actually a ruby red colour. And the black it isn't as black as it should be, because of the melanin is the black pigmentation, and on these ultramelanistics it's faded. It doesn't really show up in the camera. So he's like I said, it's been a long time since I've actually done any of these talks, so it's the first time he's been on the table for a few months. And all he's doing at the minute is he's just sniffing around. But you can see he's quite relaxed. He's very, very used to being handled. Corn snakes are probably the best if anybody's thinking about getting a snake. Corn snakes are probably the easiest to keep. They're really docile. They don't get too big. Sort of average size for a corn snake would probably be about 4 feet. They can get a bit bigger and they can be smaller, but like people aren't all the same height. So if you get one over 5 feet, that's a really big corn snake. But I would say they probably average around about 4.5 feet long. Very easy to handle, very easy for kids to handle. What he's doing now is he's looking for somewhere to hide. Snakes don't really like to be out in the open during the daytime, because basically they're open to predators. These, yeah, a lot of people hate snakes. It's not a bad thing. I've been keeping snakes a very long time, but if I was out in the wild in a country that had wild, like snakes living in the wild, I wouldn't try and pick them up. Apart from the fact you don't know if they're venomous, it stresses the snakes if they're not used to being handled. I don't see the point. I'd probably just watch it. I wouldn't try and pick it up. I know they do it a lot on TV, but I don't really see the need. So I don't know if anybody's got any questions about snakes. Okay, watch out. I don't really have to watch out for anything with this snake. He's very, very docile. He's very easily handled. You can see he's actually pretty long. If I put the box here, and if I sort of, he's going off the tail. Normally what happens is if they see a dark area, they'll head for it, but he's actually trying to get back to me. There you go. He's missed it. Prove me wrong. There you go. Normally that's what snakes will do. They'll head for somewhere where it's dark. They like to be in little tight sort of places where they feel secure. When he's in there, he doesn't have to think about anything. Like birds of prey would pick up snakes. So in there, he doesn't have to worry about things above him. He feels quite secure. They like to be in places where they've got contact with the sides, quite tactile. They feel secure when they're in and they're touching all the sides. Normally what happens, because he's so tame, he's just laying there and his tail's sticking out. If I touch, they don't like you touching their tails. If I touch his tail, they'll go in. But normally what happens is they'll curl round and then they'll sit with their head facing out. So basically they're covering that entrance. No, it's got no venom at all. He's got tiny little teeth. They're so small you can't really see them. But he's got about 200 teeth. But they're very sharp and they hook backwards. And the reason that they've got the teeth is to catch, but he'll eat mice. So if he smells a mouse, he'll strike out and catch it with his mouth. But as soon as he catches it, he'll throw 2 or 3 coils around the mouse and then tighten his body up. And the mouse will breathe out and he'll tighten up again. And the mouse will breathe out again and he'll tighten up again, and it can't breathe in. So basically what they do is they suffocate their prey. But because they squeeze so tightly, they also interrupt the blood supply around the body of the animal that they're constricting. This is a corn snake, but it is a constrictor. When you say constrictor, a lot of people automatically think boa constrictor. But a constrictor is simply a snake that it doesn't have venom and it basically coils round its prey and suffocates it. And a lot of snakes do that. In fact, anything that isn't a venomous snake will do that. So your corn snakes, milk snakes, king snakes, pine snakes, all of these snakes are constrictors. And they all eat rodents. That's what snakes eat in general. They'll eat rodents. They'll also eat like chicks and birds if they can catch them. Some snakes will eat eggs. You've got the egg-eating snake that's specially adapted to swallow an egg whole, and then it's got a bone that when it contracts, the bone breaks the egg, and then the snake regurgitates the shell. But normally snakes will swallow rodents and they swallow the whole animal. They can't bite it, chew them up or anything like that. They swallow the food whole. And they digest everything. They digest the bones, the teeth, the fur, everything. So you get a mouse, or it depends on the size of the snake as well, but a mouse, a rat, even the big snakes will take like pigs. And basically an animal goes on one end and poo comes out the other end. There are no bones left, no teeth, anything. It's just all digested. So they're very efficient with their food, whereas in general humans, unless you're vegetarian, will kill an animal and they'll eat specific parts of the animal and discard the rest. Snakes swallow everything and digest everything, so they don't need to feed that often because of that. Hatchling snakes or baby snakes that are like this thin, they feed about every 4 days. A baby mouse, a pinky mouse, which is a newly born mouse without any fur or anything, and they're bought frozen, and you just thaw them out as you need them. Once they get a bit bigger, they start to move on to bigger sized mice. So you get pinkies, which are the ones with no fur. Then you get fuzzies or fluffs, some people call them. That's again, it's young mice, but they've got a layer of fur. Then you get small mice, medium mice, large mice, and then maybe breeder female mice, which are the biggest. And then depends on the snake again. Then you move up, well, to rats. You can, like, the bigger snakes will take rats. Some will take like rats from the very beginning because they're so big when they hatch or when they're born. and this is the shed skin again. This is actually the skin from this snake, from his last shed. But you can see that's the belly, and that's the back. And you can see the scales there, and there's a gap between every scale. So when you're trying to guess the length of a snake, you don't go by the length of the skin because it's stretched, and every little gap between every scale makes it that little bit bigger, and it can actually be, the shed skin can actually be a third again the length of the actual snake. I have had people tell me, well, one person in particular tell me that their corn snake was 6 foot long, which is 2 meters. When I explained about the scales, if you can see as the snake moves past there isn't a gap between the scales, but in the shed there is. So you've got maybe a millimetre or so, maybe 2 millimetres between each scale, and it does add up. But the person was adamant, because the shed skin was 6 feet long, they measured it, the snake was 6 foot long. So that's what they said, and they stuck to it. Which, I mean, I don't really see what it matters how long. I mean, it's always a question everybody asks, how long is it? But corn snakes, like I said, around about 4.5 feet is sort of normal. So because of that, and because they're not like big-bodied snakes, they're ideal for handling and people who are new to keeping reptiles. They don't need a lot of care, but they do need sort of specific care. They need to be kept in a vivarium, or even a plastic tub or box that's got a heat. Normally it would be a heat mat that goes underneath, that heats up about 1/3 of the base of the tank or the box or whatever it's in. And it means that the snake can move back and forward, it can sit on the heat. Normally they do that when they've eaten a meal. If they warm up, the enzymes in their gut work better and they can digest their food. If the snakes are too cold, normally they wouldn't eat, because they just don't eat if they're too cold. But sometimes if they're hungry enough, or if somebody's got one and they've got it in the wrong setup, it may feed and swallow the mouse, but you'll find that it doesn't digest it. So basically what happens is the mouse starts to rot inside the snake, which obviously can be very detrimental to the snake. It could actually kill it. But like I said, they tend not to eat if they're too cold. The baby snakes get fed about every 4 days. And once they get up to this size, he gets fed once every 10 days. So it's not a huge food bill. 1 meal every 10 days, maybe 3 or 4 days after he's eaten, he'll poo. And normally that's pretty much it. They eat once, they poo once, sometimes twice, but it's not like a rabbit or a mouse or whatever. That constantly need cleaned out. So they don't take a lot of maintenance. They do need fresh water, which you put in like a little bowl, and ideally change the water every day so it's fresh water. And that's pretty much it. So you need like a tub or a tank, a heat mat, a thermostat, so you can regulate the temperature of the heat mat. You don't want it getting too hot. It can cause burns on the belly of the snake. They don't have a lot of nerves on the belly, so they know it's warm, but if we touch something that was very hot, we would like touch it and automatically pull away. Snakes don't work like that. They're not as sensitive as us to heat. I did actually see a young king snake. It was actually in a pet shop, and the pet shop owners had put they were using a bulb, like a light bulb, to keep the tank warm, and it was caged. There was a cage around the bulb, but the the holes in the wire were big enough that the young king snake could actually climb in, and that's what it did. It went inside the cage, and then it wrapped itself around the neck of the bulb, and the bulb was on. So you can imagine how hot that would be. And what happened was the skin actually stuck to the glass. So that's something to be careful of, to make sure that the snakes can't get close to, especially bulbs and any other heat sources that get really hot that you don't want the snake to touch. You've got to be really sure that there's no way the snake can get to it and lay on it, because they will do it. So, oh, he's just sniffing about in the hope that he's going to get fed, but he isn't. He's not due to be fed for a few days yet. So now what he'll do is he'll gradually head away and try and find somewhere to hide. But there isn't anywhere really in this table. The only thing is the box that I use. I'll try him again and see if it proves me right. If I put that there. He stopped moving just because he saw movement. Now he sees the dark, but again, because he's so used to being handled, he's not really that bothered about hiding. Some snakes are really nervous, but it is natural for snakes to head for dark places. And I think he is going to go in, but he's not in any rush. Just having a good sniff around there. I've actually got another corn snake. I think maybe she's been in the box as well, and you can smell her. That's why he seems interested. And there he goes. So he'll go in there and he'll work his way around the sides. Hopefully he'll do what he should do. He'll go round and then his head will come out the front and then he'll just sit. But he's so used to being out and about that the chances are he'll probably just come round and then come back out again. He knows, well, I'll say he knows, he's got used to being handled that much that he doesn't react the same as a wild snake, basically. A wild snake would probably sit in there and wouldn't come out because it would just naturally be wary. As you can see, he isn't even all in and he's already coming back out. You can see the yellow. That yellow, when he was a hatchling, the yellow, there was no yellow, but you find as they get older, the yellow, it starts at the head, at the neck, and then starts to work down the body. It'll never get all the way down. You can see, looking at that, it looks as if it's two different snakes. You've got like a yellow and red one and a sort of orange and red. But as he comes round, you'll see, you'll get to a point where the yellow disappears. Probably about halfway. It doesn't matter how old he gets, the yellow will never go all the way, not in this snake anyway. As I said, there's somewhere in the region of 620 different types of corn snake. So it's if you're interested in snakes, there's a lot of variety in the corn snake. They call the different types morphs. So if you went on Google and just typed in corn snake morphs, you would get pictures that would show you the differences, and they can vary a lot. The latest thing that I've seen is scaleless corn snakes. Well, other snakes as well, but the corn snakes. Um, they've managed to breed snakes that don't have any scales, so they look kind of weird. Looks as if they're made of rubber. But as far as I know, it doesn't cause the snake any problems. They still shed their skin as normal and act as normal, but they don't have any scales. So eventually I think they'll breed them so that you get every type of corn snake in scaleless form. Like I said, there's over 600 types, so it's going to take a few years for that to happen. I just decided to sit on top of the box. He's flicking his tongue, he's basically picking up scent in the air, and probably hoping that there's a mouse, and that's what he feeds on. So he has one mouse every 10 days. And he's 2 years old, and this is the shed skin when I first got him. I shed his skin a few days after I got him. You can see how thin he was, and small. That's the whole snake. And then now it's the size. It's all dried out now, so I can't really straighten it. But you can hear it, it sounds like plastic. Something that I just noticed. The question that people ask is, how do snakes poo? Or do they poo? What do they do with their waste? And they do poo. You can see a bit there, the dark mark. That's the vent, which is basically his butt. So this part up here, over up to his head, is the body. Then you get the vent, and then the rest is the tail. And when we need to go, they'll be like this, and then like this, and then they lift up the tail, and the vent is there, and then they just expel the waste basically, and then they just move on. The thing about snakes is they aren't that particular. If they're in a tank or a tub or a box or whatever you're keeping it in, they will go over the top of the poo. So you should always wash your hands after handling any animal, but snakes are probably worse than quite a few. They will go around their tank, the poo will dry out, but they'll go over the top of it. And snakes can carry salmonella in their gut. It's just a natural thing for them. It doesn't affect them. But if you're handling a snake, you need to remember that and always wash your hands. You should really wash your hands before you pick them up, but definitely wash your hands after you've picked them up, and don't pick up food and stuff before you wash your hands and eat it, because you could end up with salmonella. But it's just simple hygiene. Basically, once you're finished handling the snake, wash your hands, soap and water, just normal soap and water, it's fine. I have heard a few groups who don't think people should keep these sort of things. They make a big thing about the salmonella, but for some reason they don't mention the diseases that you can pick up from cats and dogs, which are much more common. Everybody's seen dogs licking kids' faces, but nobody seems to mention the worms and various things they can pick up. So it's just common sense. Just wash your hands like any other animal. It's no big deal. And if you happen to be bitten by a corn snake, it's very unlikely, but it can happen. They've got teeth. All you have to do again is wash your hands, just soap and water, and that's it. Just keep an eye on it for any redness or anything like any infection, but you shouldn't have any problems. The teeth are very sharp, but they're very short as well. If you're bitten by a corn snake, it just looks like sort of like a circle of pinholes. They don't have any venom, and there really isn't really that much to bother about. Just you don't even need like an elastoplast or anything. So that's with corn snakes. Bigger snakes, it's a bit different. They can cause more damage. So, like I said, I haven't been on for a long time, and I just thought I would come on, do that a little bit, just talk about shed skins. As you can see, the skin, this is his shed skin. He shed, I think, it was about a week ago, maybe a bit longer. But you can see there's no colour in the skin, colourless. So when you see things where you see snake skin and it's got the pattern and the colour, it means they've actually killed the animal and skinned it. It's not a natural shed. Snakes that have got black, you can see the markings, like banded Californian king snakes. Their body colour it's like a white hoop, then black, then white, then black, then white, then black. When they shed their skin, you can see a sort of clear, then grey, clear, then grey. So you can identify some snakes from the pattern, but they really need to have black for it to show. If they don't, this looks like this. If this had been what they call a snow corn snake, which is white and pink, the shed skin would look exactly the same. You wouldn't be able to tell what kind of corn snake it was. So I think that's it for this little talk. But if anybody watches this and they've got any questions, you can always look at the Petsnakes website. As you can see, as he pushes the box away, it's petsnakes.co.uk. Maybe find out a bit more about the stuff I've done. I've done a lot of public talks and some television stuff and bits and pieces. So some people might be interested in it. I've got quite a few pictures of various things that I've taken pictures of, various things I've kept. So thanks for watching. I'm going to try and be a bit more regular with this thing, so I'm planning to maybe do one talk every week, on a Saturday or a Sunday when I get time. So that's it for today. So thanks for watching. Hope to catch you again. Bye.